lot of relationships, there's always someone who needs to be the rescuer and there's always someone who wants to be rescued. In those case scenarios, there's a lot of toxicity there. Usually the one who's being rescued will eventually take the rescuer for granted, and the rescuer will wonder if they're even really loved or if they're just there because they're needed, right? Whenever a person who is seemingly or somewhat whole meets a person who is a rescuer, mind you, these roles can be either or. The rescuer can be a man or it can be a woman, right? And the one who needs saving could be a man or a woman. And the person who likes to be the rescuer or the saver because they have no sense of self-worth meets someone, that rescuer, let's call them the codependent, right? The rescuer meets someone who doesn't need rescuing, who doesn't need saving, who feels perfectly fine with the way they are. Perhaps they're flawed and not perfect, but they're not used to, nor are they intending to have someone come into their life and fix all their problems for them. This puts the rescuer in a position where now they don't understand the purpose they serve. And what this oftentimes ends up turning into is a very controlling partner. Again, this could be the woman or this could be the man. I say you are the person that doesn't need rescuing, okay? Granted, everyone can improve, but you're not asking to be saved or fixed. If that person is a saver/fixer, they are essentially going to find every single thing that is wrong or flawed with you and the way in which you do things and try to correct it. Eventually turns into them being a controlling partner, a dominating partner, a partner who doesn't allow you the freedom to do things your own way, to learn your lessons your own way, to build upon your life in your own way. Can also appear to be somewhat narcissistic. So the codependent and the narcissistic spectrum, it is a spectrum. We have like healthy, whole people in the middle. Very few are actually a zero right in the middle. But think of like a time number line, like in math, we have 10 and then we have -10, right? We have narcissistic and like codependent. We all land somewhere, right? What ends up happening is it becomes a dance. If, say, one person is very much the rescuer, right? The one that wants to save everybody. That's considered the codependent, believe it or not. It seems like that doesn't make sense. Doesn't codependent mean that I depend on you? No, incorrect. Codependency means that I need to be in control of fixing and saving everything so that I can have value. So when a codependent is trying to repair a person or rescue a person who doesn't need it, who rejects it, they become controlling. They now look for all the flaws and problems in that person and convinces them that they have these flaws and problems because they need to fix something, thereby making the codependent turn into a narcissist. Some people need to feel needed in order to validate in their own mind why they are worthy of receiving love in the first place. Like, why does this person love me? Well, because I helped them with this and that, because I fixed this and that for them, because without me, they wouldn't have this or that. Well, then that's not true, genuine love by two whole people. Because in my opinion, genuine romantic love, at least, is appreciation for the other person. They should be able to support one another, right, in difficult times. But we are all individually responsible for our own lives, to find our own worth, our own value, our own sense of, confidence, find something that we're good at, work our butts off to produce or provide something to society, to manage our finances, to establish ourselves in this world. A lot of people that start off very young don't even know who they are yet. And so they go learning and discovering who they are as in one of these categories, the rescuer, the codependent, the narcissist, whatever. If you're a person who has always somewhat had to be somewhat self-sufficient and had to solve your own problems on your own, a lot of times you are used to not depending on other people, which makes it very hard for you to accept rescuing because you don't feel like you need it. Even if you're doing something wrong in your life, you're like, I think I can fix it on my own. Thanks, but no thanks. If the other person is that codependent, they will absolutely be controlling. So the person who is being controlled usually will receive this in one of two manners, depending on where they are in their life. If they're young and somewhat insecure and still not, 100% sure of themselves, they might doubt themselves and think, could this person be right? Could all these things be wrong with me? And that starts to affect their self-esteem, which actually is counterproductive. It's not helpful to the person. If the codependent, the rescuer, is trying to make them better, you're actually enabling them and making them worse. You need to let them fix their own problems. You need to let them find their own way, their own solutions. We can only become whole individually on our own. We can care for one another, love one another, support one another, but we can only find our own true value and meaning on our own. So let's say they are not so young, not so inexperienced, has done a lot of growth and inner work, and has managed to create a life that they are proud of and is able to see their worth. They can no longer be controlled, nor can they be convinced that they need anything to be fixed, because they're aware of themselves, they're aware of their flaws, and they know that if there is something about them that they need to work on, they pick up on it pretty quickly and they realize it and they get to work on it. So now the controller has nothing to control. So they become extremely angry, irritable, dominating. They look for little things that are not even important just so that they have some sense of control. And if you are with a person who needs saving, who needs rescuing, or in your opinion, you think perhaps they need rescuing, if you, again, don't know your worth, you're going to try to fix that person. Or if you have a good heart and you want to try to fix that person, right? There's a difference between wanting to help someone because you have a good heart, and there's a difference between wanting to help someone because you want them to love you, to give you something in return for doing that. So a person who truly loves themselves doesn't see the need to save or rescue anyone else for the sake of feeling loved. In fact, quite the opposite. It becomes almost a turnoff to them if the other person is expecting them to save and fix them, because then it makes the whole person feel as if, is that the only reason why you would love me, if I fix and save all your problems? So once again, this can happen to the men or to the women. The roles are interchangeable. So what ends up happening is that people who are on a similar frequency, let's use the number line once again. For those of us who are logical and mathematical, we have 0, and then we have negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? If you're a negative 3 and a positive 3, you're going to attract each other. There's going to be like a magnetic dance. I learned about this through a book by Ross Rosenberg called The Human Magnet Syndrome. But let's say you have done your work and you were in the negative and you are coming, closer to the 0, and the other person is still like at a 4. There's not going to be a match. It doesn't matter, again, which side you're on. If you're the person who wants help, who needs help, who is looking for a partner who's going to rescue them, or if you're the person who feels like they want to find a partner to rescue so that they can not be left, so that they can be loved, so that they can be valued. Either way, it's toxic, right? That's not a good place to operate from. If you meet a person in the beginning, there's always the honeymoon phase. There's the attraction. There's the chemistry. But as time passes and you get to know one another and you see how the other operates, if you realize that you are not on equal ends of the spectrum, you become a mismatch. You become an imbalance. The person who wants to be rescued is wondering and upset, why don't you love me? Why don't you want to be with me? Why won't you help me? Why won't you save me? And the person who doesn't feel the need to rescue anyone is because I don't. And vice versa. The person who wants to rescue and save someone who doesn't need rescuing and saving is going to insist that they need to fix things and work on things because they're broken. They need something to be improved upon, and you need me in order to do that. But as time, that then becomes the mismatch, right? Because toxic relationships can do their dance for years, right? Years, 10, 20 years, because they're still on the equal sides of both aspects of the spectrum, right? One is doing this and the other one's like, yeah, I see why you're doing that. I think it's necessary, and vice versa. But once one of the two people heals, once the rescuer is like, I'm no longer going to rescue anyone, everyone's responsible for themselves, just like I had to be responsible for myself, there's no longer a match. Once the person who needs rescuing realizes, I don't need someone to rescue me, I realize I'm responsible for myself, I want to be loved for who I am, not because someone feels bad for me, then they heal. Now it's no longer a match. So Ross Rosenberg, Human Magnet Syndrome, very interesting book. Check it out. I just want to put out a quick disclaimer that I am not a psychologist. I am an ultrasound tech. But I had been in a relationship for a very long time that had a very weird dance. And I started realizing something was wrong, and I decided to do the work and figure out what was wrong, and just to see how I can fix it, or we can fix it. And then I realized this is not fixable, because if both people are not on board to do their own personal work, whether you do it apart, independently, prior to meeting each other, or together as a couple, it's not going to work. If one person is healing, one person is doing the work, one person is advancing, one person's getting better, the other person's going to start feeling insecure. And it's just not going to work. And aside from memories of my own experience, I still talk to people and meet people and know people till this day who are unaware of the circumstances that they're currently in, or the circumstances that they used to be in, and have still not done the work to repair the part of themselves that caused that dynamic in the first place. Again, this doesn't mean it's your fault. We're all humans, we're all flawed, we're all on our own personal growth journey. And it's so necessary and so important to spend time alone. And I'm not talking like 2 or 3 months. Like, I'm talking about like at least a year. Like, it's so important to spend time with yourself and really do the work, read the books, watch the videos, go to therapy, like do the work of like learning about yourself, not just like sitting at home alone, making your own little microwavable dinners and watching Netflix. That's not what I mean by being alone. You know, I mean, again, understanding yourself better, learning yourself better, realizing that you can operate in this world entirely on your own. And you know, semantics aside, we're not talking about like paying bills and whatnot. I mean, all that, obviously dual income households have it a lot better than a single income household. That's not what I'm talking about. Emotionally, can you go to bed by yourself? Can you sleep in the middle of that bed by yourself? Do you need someone to kiss good morning every single day? Or are you fine? Like, can you operate on your own? If the answer is yes, then you've done the work. If you're okay with coming home to a house all to yourself, in fact, if you kind of thrive on being by yourself, I mean, it might be hard for you to welcome and accept a new person into your life once you become so used to the peace and quiet and the calm and the ease of just making all of your decisions without having to consider another person. With that said, we're all human and we all have needs. Be them emotional, physical, someone to converse with, right? Sometimes I hop on here and I talk to you guys because I have something to say, and you know, everyone's busy doing their thing, so I'm just gonna say it to the void, right? But yeah, even if you're okay with living on your own and you start getting used to it and it's very peaceful and very relaxing, it shouldn't mean that you should also become toxically healthy. You know what I mean? Toxically whole, where you're like, I don't need anybody, I'm whole, you know, I'm doing good. Like, understand that you're a human being and you need to be whole on your own. And while welcoming a new person into your life would be a beautiful, wonderful thing, if you have things in common and you want same things for the future, then you should absolutely welcome the possibility. But on that same note, you have to also welcome the possibility of being on your own. This could be forever. It could be, because some people settle. They find someone and they settle down with them because they don't want to be alone. And this is why we have so many problematic relationships, because the likelihood of finding someone, you're never going to find someone who's exactly like you. I mean, just putting it out there. We're all different. We're all going to have to make compromises if you're going to be in a relationship. And some people are too self-absorbed and don't want to make any compromises. And some people are too much of a people pleaser and want to make all the compromises just so that they have someone. Again, it's about a balance, right? It's about having similar mindsets, similar values, and talking things through and deciding, all right, what should we pick this time? Are we going to go with what you want or with what I want? So considering that I am not a therapist, I have been to therapy a lot. I have listened to therapists. I have learned a lot from therapists. I've read a lot of books. I have done the work, and I've looked at myself and analyzed myself and realized my imperfections. So there is no insecurity, because when I do something messed up, if I know that I messed up, I'm like, yo, I messed up. I'm sorry. Like, my mistake. A person who can't do that hasn't fully learned who they are yet and hasn't fully loved themselves yet. So once you start getting to the point where you're like, okay, I feel like I know enough about myself, you become a mirror, right? Now you start to see the things in everyone else. And then you have to reanalyze. When you see these flaws in everyone else, do you still want to fix them? Do you still want to rescue them? Pay attention to how you are now behaving with other people now that you've done the work. Because if you are now trying to make everyone else fix themselves, pay attention to, are you trying to fix them? Are you trying to rescue them? Are you enabling them? Are you bailing them out of their problems? Are you trying to find, the opportunities for them so that they can do things better? Are you trying to fix them? Because if you are, now you're caught in a whole other loop. You shouldn't be. There's nothing wrong with communicating what you think the person should be working on. But it is entirely and ultimately up to the other person to do the work. Maybe you're a little light bulb shining a light so that they can see themselves. They may not want to. They may reject that. They may not be ready for that, and that's okay. Because now that confrontation, that conflict between, hey, I'm recognizing that you need to work on some things because it's not vibing with me. If the other person gets extremely defensive, if the other person, starts to blame you or make you feel bad about yourself because perhaps you feel like you're not on the same level and you don't feel like you should be responsible for whatever situations they may have to work on, check yourself. Don't let that drag you down. You might feel guilty. You might feel bad. You might feel like you are dropping the ball, letting down a person who needs your help. But understand that if you have an empty cup, you can't pour into another cup. And if a person is constantly needing something and you're pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring, you're going to be running on empty. When they need something again, now it's like one is being filled, and one has a hole in it. And the one that's being filled by all this work and energy, it's coming from that person. Their work, their energy, their efforts, their thoughts, their ideas. They're pouring and they're pouring because they want to save, because they want to help. They think they're doing something good. But there's a hole in this cup. And it just keeps pouring out and pouring out and pouring out. This cup is going to get exhausted. There's only so much work and effort that can be done to fill this cup to then pour into that one. Back to the original statement. We have to fix the hole at the bottom of the cup. Whether it's you or me, him or her, she or he, they, them, whatever. Fix your hole. Do your work. Read your books. Surround yourself with people who have been in similar situations. Find a good therapist, because not all of them are good. I'm telling you right now. Not all of them know what they're talking about, unfortunately. Find people who have been in similar experiences. Bring your ego down a little bit and try to listen to them and see, if what they have to say has any merit. Because some people get extremely defensive because they feel so worthless or bad about themselves that they get angry at the person who's trying to tell them what they should be doing in order to help themselves, as opposed to helping them. They want to be helped. They want to be rescued. And again, the person who wants to be the rescuer also feels worthless unless they are rescuing someone. So they become controlling and dominating. I just wanted to add that the book that I read does refer to codependency and narcissism as being compared to a number line. But in my experience, with my understanding of how the dynamics work, the way that I view it is that it is a vicious cycle. It is a circle. At any given point in time, any particular person could be more on the narcissistic side or more on the codependent side, depending on where you are at in your life, what relationships you've had to deal with in the past, what work you've done on yourself. And then you could be healthy and whole, and you feel so good about yourself that you start to become narcissistic because you start thinking that everybody else needs to be doing better. So what you end up becoming is codependent, because now you need everybody else to be better so that it can validate the fact that you're so cool and whole. And you're so cool and whole, nobody's listening to you, so I'm better than everyone else. And that circle can go on, or it can go the other way around. Let's say you're down here. I feel like I'm not whole. I feel like I'm not worth anything. So I need to be helping people. I need to be doing good things for people. I need to save people, because that way they'll like me and they'll love me. And now I feel so good about myself because I've done all this amazing stuff for other people that they should be listening to me. They should be doing what I say. I'm the one that knows more than everybody else. And now you're on the narcissistic side. So there's like the codependent, the narcissistic, and then you have the healthy whole and the very unhealthy unwhole, right? So it's, to me, think of a clock. It's a clock. It's a circle. It's a vicious cycle. And we are constantly moving through it, right? And we are constantly meeting people who are moving through theirs. The day that everyone becomes familiarized with this and starts to understand, dang, I'm being narcissistic as heck, or damn, I'm trying to save people that don't need my saving, that will be the day where marriages will not end up in divorce 50% of the time. Cohabitating relationships that are not in legally binded marriages will not end up in separation more than 50% of the time, because these are the statistics, right? At least 60% of the time they're going to end up breaking up. There's more single and alone people in the world today now than there has ever been in time in history. We have evolved as a species physically, but industrially and all that stuff. Psychologically though, there's still so much work that needs to be done. And I think once we understand that and we can actually have patience and compassion for the other person, there might be ways around, how do you deal when this person's on this side and this person's on this side at any given time and still stay together, right? So then we revert back to the timeless old sayings and beliefs that the perfect love and the perfect marriage is when two people realize that they are both imperfect and refuse to give up on one another. So the problem is when one or both people are completely blinded to themselves and to the work that they need to do. Because if that is the case, they need to be alone for a little while. And some people jump from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship. They go from girl to girl to girl, guy to guy to guy, and they never do the work. And they live their whole life this way. And they're never going to find a happy relationship. And it's going to be kind of late once they realize that. So I'm having this today because I'm trying to go light, because I made myself some pasta yesterday. I had a craving. And I resumed my Pilates workouts today after not having gone for a couple of weeks because I was out of town. But another quick little thing, not going to take too long, that I wanted to talk about was how some people say that relationships are transactional and that it's wrong. And it's we're just trying to see what we can get out of one another. Relationships are absolutely transactional. When you think about the way the world works, everything is transactional. But the word transactional automatically sets off an alarm in our head that makes us think that it's for use, right? Like you use money to buy things, right? Transaction simply means that you get something, I get something, you give something, I give something. But it's not something that should be obligatory. It is more done out of love. It is done when you have the energy to. Because what happens is with these dynamics of relationships, of rescuer and blah, 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 one person can end up draining the other. And when that person is drained, no matter how much they may love the person who drained them, they don't have the energy for the ability to continue to exchange transactions, right? To continue to give anymore. But if they continue to expect to receive, that's a red flag. If you know that you can't give to this relationship anymore, do the person a favor and let them go. Because that ultimately means that the person that's draining you needs to work on themselves, because that means that they are being too needy, right? They are requesting, even if they don't say it verbally, even if they don't, it's not an obvious thing. They're not saying, please help me with this and that. Just by their behavior, by their actions, right? By their demeanor, if it's a victim sort of mentality, they are asking to be rescued. They don't see how they can rescue themselves and they feel at a loss, or they don't think, why should I rescue myself? And they're entitled. Either way, that person needs work. And if you are the rescuer, and you're trying to dominate and control someone else, ask yourself why. Like, why are you trying to dominate and control someone else? If they feel that they're doing fine with their life. So if you're in that situation, you should walk away too. The give and take in a relationship is always going to change. At some point in time, one might be more of the giver and one more the receiver, and vice versa. It's also the quality of what a person would love to receive versus what a person wants to give or can give, right? In most common typical situations, the man takes the woman on a date and pays for her dinner, and it's very chivalrous and romantic, and it makes her happy and it makes him happy. And in relationships, sex should never be used as a weapon, but it's typically thought of that, sex is the reward for the man. That's not always the case. Sex is rewarding for both people. Some women, if they think that they're doing a chore to give their partner sex, then again, there's something that's not right there. Or if the man feels like it's an obligation or a burden to have to pay for her dinner, again, something's not right. Because if we're whole, then we're okay with paying for the dinner. And if we really appreciate the other person, then we're happy to do it for them. And if we are whole, then we are more than okay with interacting, sexually. But if we appreciate the person, it's not just about being okay with it. It's also a joy for the giver as well. So giving and receiving in a loving dynamic should be pleasurable for both people, no matter which role you're playing at that time. Are you the giver? Are you the receiver? It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, these are transactions. They are. And it doesn't make love conditional. Love is not conditional. If you really care about a person and you love someone, there are no conditions. You just feel that appreciation. End of story. Like, you just either feel it or you don't. Relationships, however, are conditional. Because you can love a person and not be able to be in a relationship with them for all of the reasons that I just listed. If they need to work on themselves, if you need to work on yourself, if for whatever reason, there's so many reasons why people should not be in relationships. Either you're causing harm to someone else, or you're causing harm to yourself, or you are, stunting your own growth or stunting the other person's growth. That doesn't mean that the love goes away. There could be anger, there could be fights. And just because the love stays doesn't mean that you want to revisit that relationship again. Because like I said, love is appreciation. And even if a relationship ends and you know you don't want to go back to it, there's something very profound about appreciating where you once were, because it helps you to now see how far you've come.